Well, good evening. Welcome to another broadcast, and so glad that you guys can join us. Again, I hope you're having a wonderful day. And today we're going to have an interesting topic. We're going to talk about this whole, you remember a while back, recently, I did a video, it was called A Culture of Blame. And why do people, anytime something happens within your particular group, and yeah, it's embarrassing, but yet there's a lot of times there's always this proclivity to blame, to look for someone else to shift the blame to. Now, we've been saying, hey, man, you're just a hypocrite, right? And yeah, that's hypocrisy, but there's a little bit more to that, and we're going to get through this. We're going to get into the science behind that and what we can do to make those adjustments. And we're going to use as our foundation a story that just happened recently, Sunday. And I'm going to talk about that. So it's going to be an interesting one here. It's a little bit of reading. So, all right. Good to see you guys. Today's temperature here in the beautiful state of Arizona right now is 95 degrees. I don't know where it is where you are, but yeah, it was a warm one, but it wasn't, that's relative out here. I mean, once you start getting over 100, that's when it really starts cooking, but we good now. We good today. Good shout out to Gerard, and yeah, I'm still getting through that video you sent me. Yeah, it's something. So we're gonna, yeah, it's stuff is something, man. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be talking about today, and it should be a good one today for this broadcast. Okay, I had a bit of a challenging day today, and still kind of working myself through it. So I'll click in fully in a few moments here. So. All right, we're going to give people about another 30 seconds, and then we're going to get started. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome to another broadcast, and I hope you guys had a great day. And today is, in fact, Monday, May the 26th. Before you know, we'll be in June, and it's also Memorial Day. So, you know, we give a shout out to all of our soldier friends and family. You know, I don't care what your views are as far as America is concerned. This ain't about kissing the feet of America and America is wicked and evil and all that. We get all of that. But there are people in our family, friends and family, who elected to get into that space, get into that line of work, being a soldier, doing that stuff, and oftentimes putting themselves in the line of fire, you know, and we just want to say thank you. You know, and appreciate, you know, for you, you know, doing that kind of work, because that's something that not everybody, you know, would do, you know. And so regardless of your own personal views of America and what it stands for in the system and all that other stuff, I think we can at least acknowledge, you know, our people, our, you know, relatives, our ancestors, what have you, who did pay the ultimate price and fought and all that kind of stuff. We can give honor to them, at least on this day. So, you know, so there you go. I know there's some people out there now, they're trying to make it, this is a day that we're supposed to honor George Floyd, which I strongly disagree with that. And maybe later on I'll get into that. But George Floyd did not die for my sins. You know, George Floyd is not a saint. He is a symbol that a certain political party is still trying to use. I told you that the most valuable, I would say the most valuable product in the West, particularly in America, are the bodies of dead black men. You know, when it comes to feminism, when it comes to anything that they want to push, they will use as a foundation. Even LGBT, we even talked about, Black Lives Matter. When Black Lives Matter first started, they kicked it off with the bodies of dead black men, and they were able to amass millions and millions and millions of dollars off of this. But when you would go to their website, however, in their description, they rarely mentioned black men. It was all about black women, and it was all about LGBT. But when it came to the affairs of black men, on the other hand, well, that was something different. Even today, we see Democrats that are going down. There's another black politician that I just saw. He's mad and upset because he went all the way down to South America to demand to see these M13 gang members, and they won't let him in, and he's upset. But this same Negro will not even, I guarantee you, has not gone into a prison to really put foot to behind to raise the issue of numbers of black men and women that are in the prison system that are languishing there, that should not be there because of DNA cases that were not pure and all that other stuff. I don't see them going overboard on that. But all of a sudden now, M13 gang members that aren't even black American, all of a sudden they have great importance, and we're going to fly. We're going to get into our American planes, and we're going to fly to a different country to stand for the rights of people who aren't even citizens. This is how much they hate you. They will go to that length. They will literally fly over your house, go to a different country to quote unquote fight for the rights of individuals that aren't even citizens. Now make some kind of sense. So you still believe in this system like that? Well, there you go. I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, yeah, that is the kind of goofiness that we got going on in this world today. But before we get started, make sure you check out our website again at sambatree.com, sambatree.com. And this is our latest image, our banner image. We try to change it once a week. My wife said that we should probably have a separate page where we show you all these different banners that we've done, man. These things are coming out nice. You hear me? And so maybe I'll do that. So our feature this time is Drink Your Tea. So make sure you check out our extensive and growing tea section right here on sambatree.com, all herbal teas, of course. We do believe in 100%. We don't believe in these fillers and all this other nonsense. We're not Lipton and don't want to be Lipton. Okay, we don't want to be all of that. We make our own stuff. You know, we go to people who grow it, they dry it, they bag it, and they bring it. That's how we do it. Just want to bring your attention for some of our customers. If you are experiencing a slight delay in your shipments, just check your email. Okay, we're going to be sending an email out to y'all. You remember it was about a couple of weeks ago I told you about this whole Shopify thing and what they did or whatever. Man, I tell you, that's a whole nother story that I can get into, but it's just whatever. And but yeah, we're at the tail end of that now. So rest assured, we got you. Okay, we didn't forget you. We're good. But just check your email when you get a chance. We'll have an email going out sometime this evening. But you're covered and you're good. It's not anything serious like that. But we're getting orders out. To the bottom line, we're getting things out. So make sure you check out our website. And for those that filled out our survey on some of the things that y'all are looking for, really appreciate that. If you haven't done so, make sure you check your emails for those that are on the email list. And yeah, make sure you fill out that survey, because that will help us to know exactly what are some things we should be targeting and getting and putting in our wonderful store, thanks to you guys. And so I'm just showing you some of the things, on everything from herbal to skincare, the whole nine. And so yeah, so we'll be putting something out very shortly. And when you're on Sambatree, you know, of course, you also want to make sure we just released the moss powder, Irish moss powder. Again, you know, they won't allow us to tell you all what is it good for. What I would suggest is you just need to look it up. Okay. And that's not me. You know, I'm just telling you, you know, this is part of the issues that we've been having with Shopify on this. But here are some of the the benefits right here, so you can check that out. But if you want the full benefits, make sure you look them up. Okay, so we got all of that going on, and then we also have Samba University, which is right here. Make sure you check out, if you have not checked out our ChatGPT course, make sure you do that. I'm going to talk about that in a moment, why it's so important, because I ran out of time. I was getting ready to put a post up. I'll tell you about it in a moment, but check out tonight after the broadcast. I'll have the post up on the community page. This is a very important course. It really, really is. So if you just are getting started with ChatGPT, or you're just like, I don't know, you're kind of iffy about it, go ahead and sign up for it. The course is already done, and you can watch it on your own time, and you get a 78-page book with it. Also, if you're looking at getting AI artwork, we got that as well. And we just dropped this book, The Big Black Book of AI Prompts. We got almost over 450 prompts that will get you started in your AI journey. And these aren't just random prompts. These are very intentional, everything from artwork to just starting a business, health, whatever. We got a whole lot of them in there. So make sure you check out our website, sambatree.com. All right. So today in this broadcast there, the AI post that I'm gonna be posting in a little bit. I'll just say this. Okay, I can't get into the details, okay, but I'll just say this. I told you guys a while back, I said, listen, with the emergence of AI, particularly platforms like ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, one of the things that you're going to start seeing churches do as an act of desperation, preachers or pastors or whatever, they're going to start incorporating AI in what they do. I did a whole video on this. And they're going to use it as a way of confirmation bias. And confirmation bias is basically you gathering up information that's going to confirm what your personal beliefs are. And just to reiterate, there is nothing wrong with having faith. There's nothing wrong with having a belief, but belief does not translate to truth. Okay. And that's the mistake a lot of people make, is that they get the two mixed up. There's nothing wrong with believing that one day you're going to be an engineer, or believing one day you're going to do this, that, or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what motivates us to keep pressing on in life. But it doesn't. But in the meantime, it is not a truth. You understand? And this becomes especially dangerous in the area of when you start getting into religion and all this other stuff. One of the things I mentioned when it comes to these platforms is that think of ChatGPT like a gun almost. And what I mean by that's an analogy, right? But what do I mean by that? A gun can be used for protection of your home, for hunting, right? But it also can be used to push violence, to be violent, towards somebody else, to commit crimes. Well, ChatGPT is really kind of the same thing. And when you think about it, there's a lot of things in life that are like that. They can be used for its intended purpose, or they can be abused by the person that's using it. And and there are people out there today. I got another reminder very recently. Yet we have another person in the chat world who's using this platform for this whole purpose, confirmation bias. And, and this is something, like I said, again, we've warned people about this is going to happen, and it's happening. So I have a post that I'm going to be posting after this broadcast. I definitely want you to check it out. And it gives you some tips on what to look for anytime you hear people using this as a way to confirm their own biases. I'll just say this real quick. Anytime when you're doing searches, like tonight, I'm going to present to you some stuff on from ChatGPT. But what's very important is when you're using that platform, if you're asking certain questions, depending on the topic, you want to make sure that you are giving that platform full autonomy to get to the answer, to truth, right? Because I can ask ChatGPT, for example, anything, and in my question, I can have my own bias in it, and it will give back to me my bias. It will give me an answer, but that answer will be kind of blended with my own bias, and it will actually tell you that if you know how to read the results, which some people clearly don't, because they'll say, okay, prove to me that I believe that blue is the best color in the world, right? I could say that. and I want you to prove to me why blue is the best color. Well, ChatGPT will give you the answer based off of that. But that doesn't mean that blue is the best color, right? It's just a matter of opinion. Well, that's the same thing. Now, imagine someone taking a thought or a belief that they have from the Bible, and they're going into a platform like ChatGPT with that same way of asking questions. Well, what's going to happen? You're going to get back a confirmation bias. And that's what we're going to, so that's why I say you got to be careful. And that's why we did the book, the Big Black Book of AI Prompts. It's showing you how to properly put one together so that you can get real answers. Do you understand? And so it's prompt engineering, basically. So again, I just implore you to make sure you check it out, but be on the lookout. That post will be up later this evening, and then I'll show you that. Okay. Anyway, so let's move on right along here. Now, this weekend, how should I start this? This weekend was it Saturday or was it Sunday? Let's see. Today is Monday. I'm trying to think. Was that yesterday? Maybe it was yesterday. Anyway, my wife, daughter, and I, we went out to Chandler, Arizona, which is not too far from here. But Chandler, Arizona is a town, it's a growing town, and there's, they have a significant Asian population there. And there's certain parts of it that actually remind me of Southern California because, these different Asian stores out there. And, they got their restaurants and stuff, they got restaurants, they got their little other stores and all of that. It's pretty cool, and they had they got their grocery store and all that. We go there every now and then. And so, man, when I tell you it was I so enjoyed it. We went to get some pho. I don't know if y'all ever had pho, P-H-O. I was going to say P-H-A. Please, don't know. It's P-H-O. If you've ever driven by a restaurant and you say, for those that aren't familiar with it, you need to stop on by. First, check the ratings, but you need to get some of that. My goodness, this soup was so good. It was noodles, and then I got was it beef? It was beef. It had vegetables in there. Gave them our money. I said, because I've had pho many times in the past, but a lot of times I get it to go, that ain't the way to eat it, man. You got to eat it there. And this time I said, no, I'm going to sit my behind down. We're going to eat it here. Oh, my goodness. They brought out this big old silver bowl, and that thing was filled with vegetables and fruit, and that beef, my goodness. Too bad they put MSG in there. But anyway, every now and then, I'm just like, whatever. But it's so good. It's so good. And it was hot, y'all. I mean, it was hot outside. And for me to sit down and eat something hot, it had to be good. And man, that thing was good. It was good. I'm about ready to go back. Anyway, so we went there, enjoyed ourselves. The people were nice and all that. Never have any issues. And we went to the grocery store. I'm like, we already here. Might as well go to the grocery store. My wife bought some fish, and she made some fish. That was also, she gave me a little bit of it. Again, very good. Very good. It was a lovely day. It was and really enjoyed just being in a place where it was just peaceful and everybody's nice. I enjoyed it. Shouldn't that always be the case? It should, right? Especially when you're around your own people. It should be like that, shouldn't it? But unfortunately, that's not the case, is it? Now, recently, there was a story last night that came out in the news. This was late last night it came out. And this is in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Shout out to all my South Carolina people. Hartsville, and for those of you, I got someone in there, South Carolina, Hartsville, Darlington, Orangeburg? Something like that. Anyway, that's my parents. And that whole area out there. Myrtle Beach, that's obviously on the coast, so I'm not too familiar with Myrtle Beach, but, it's in South Carolina. But anyway, Myrtle Beach is known for, of course, having, among other things, Black Bike Week, which, if you're not familiar, Black Bike Week is a time when you got motorcycle. It's basically Freaknik with motorcycles. I'll just put it that way. I'll just put it that way. It's Freaknik with motorcycles. And man, let me tell you. So I have been tracking this for some time now. And, it's been getting progressively worse. It's everything what you expect. There's always the fighting and all this, and people getting arrested, and there's an occasional shooting and all this stuff. And it gets, people are it's like we have become dull to these same antics, these same shenanigans that go on. And we're going to talk about why that is. We're going to talk about why that's the case. But you're going to also find out this is not exclusive to black people. Okay, so, just hang with me for a moment. And so last night, the story came out that 11 people had to go to the hospital in Myrtle Beach because it was a boat apparently that was up. It's northern Myrtle Beach. Right above it is a town called Little River. And let me see if I can get it up on the screen here. Right above it is it's a town called Little River. And I looked them up, and, they take great pride in their history and all this other stuff. It's a small town. It reminds me of a lot of small towns, like, along the coast, along Georgia, just along the coast, like in North Carolina, South Carolina. It reminds me of that, just very small town, boatings and all that stuff they got here. And you can see this and this, what you're looking at right now on the screen. Well, someone had a birthday party, and they rented what you call it? I'm getting ready to say a ChatGPT boat. Where am I going with that? They chartered a boat. That's what I was trying to say. They chartered a boat, and it was for a birthday party. That's what we're hearing. But you know what happened. The boat came back. They said people were arguing, and next thing you know, shots were fired. And 11 people ended up going to the hospital. Some people had to self-transport and all this. Well, anyway, and then there was also an incident where a cop was rushing to the scene. He had a rifle or something, and somehow it fired off twice, and he had to go to the hospital because there was stuff going on in Little River, but there was also fighting and shooting and stuff going on south of there in Myrtle Beach. So it was stuff going on all at the same time, just crazy. And I'm sitting up here on social media just watching this unfold, keeping my eye on the police and the locals and what they're saying so that I'm getting firsthand information, right? And I'm just sitting here and watching this. And I saw how people were just flooding the zone. They were flooding the social media zone with all of these different reports. You had, and I wrote about this earlier, you had some people saying that it was a white man that did it, who they said he had a buzz haircut and he was running from the scene and jumped on a motorcycle. There was someone else that said that it was a sniper on the local bridge that was down there. He had a clear shot to the docking area where this boat had docked. And they said that they were literally, someone said, I heard the police say, come out with your hands up. So you had that. Then there was and this is on my phone, somebody posted this. This was on X or Twitter, and they were posting this. It's right over here. Here it is. Oh, no, it's right here. Let me just show y'all this real quick. This is what was being posted. It's right here. This right here. Someone posted this. See this? Breaking. 11 people taken to hospital after a shooting in Little River, South Carolina. And then they got this picture of this white man, except it wasn't a white man. But if you look at this and if you're looking at this, don't it look, you would assume that, oh, it must have been a white man. It was a lone gunman, a white person. No, that's not what happened either. But this is what was being put out. This is why, like I said, we're in an age right now where you literally have to question everything. You got to question everything. But there were so many people that was retweeting this and sharing it and saying, yeah, it's some white person that was going. And it was saying, see, black folks, we can't be safe anywhere and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, I'm sitting up here like this. Just my face just is plain because I already knew. And, it was still, the investigation was still going on. It was getting late. I said, I'm just going to go to bed. I said, because by the time I wake up, I'm sure they'll get some more clarity. And sure enough, that's what happened. They said, yeah, the incident started on the boat. There was some arguing or fighting going on the boat, which all of a sudden now people, they started shooting, and there you go. And meanwhile, I'm listening to the locals. They were saying, man, I've never seen so many police like that in my life. I mean, in this town, we've never seen this. And let alone the shooting, we've never seen any like this. We've never seen this in this town before. We're not used to this. And so I went even further. I said, well, what's the crime rate? Just curious. What's the crime rate in Little River, South Carolina? It's below the state average, just to give you an idea. It's below the state average. They have a measurable amount of crime, but it's nominal. I mean, it's like really low. But all it took is one night for their crime statistics to skyrocket. And guess who the contributing factor was? Black folks. I know people hearing that. I know that already messes with you a little bit. I know. But it's true. But we can also, it's not just this example. I can point to many other examples where there's birthday parties. I was looking at, oh man, what was it? Did I bookmark that? Yes, I did. Now, this is Detroit. This is Detroit local news. I want to play you this. This was yesterday's news. This is yesterday's news. I want you to take a look at this. Let me see who's watched later. It's right here. And what made me watch it was it had somebody on there that I'm sure some of y'all know. This is Detroit news. I'm gonna play this for you. This is how it started. Right here. Imagine your news. This is how your news starts. It's crazy. Anyway.
We begin with a harrowing tale, a barrage of bullets and a woman playing dead to keep from being killed. The Dearborn Heights woman is recovering in the hospital now. She's lost her hand, but thankfully not her life. She says her ex-boyfriend opened fire on her home. She tried to dodge, but was hit several times, and her fiance was also wounded. Fox 2's Camila Mary spoke with her about what could have been deadly.
Opened the screen door, and he just started shooting his gun, his AR-15. It was just shots everywhere.
It was Sunday morning, May 18th. Darshell Evans was getting ready to make breakfast for herself and her fiance when she says her ex-boyfriend walked into the house. Evans lives on Waddell Street in Dearborn Heights.
He just came in shooting. He didn't say anything. He didn't have any words. He just came in blazing, gunfire. That's all I seen is gunfire.
Evans' fiance is shot in the leg and yet is able to run away. But Evans is shot several times.
He was trying to shoot me in my head, and then I blocked it with my right hand, which caused the amputation of my right hand. And once he did that, I had to play like I was dead just so he would stop shooting.
Later that afternoon in Detroit, police arrested Evans' ex-boyfriend, Ashante Linnelly Ramon McAfee.
He just wanted me back. He was just like one of those type of people, like, if I can't have you, nobody can have you.
And in the 6 years they were together,
maybe like a push or a shove or something like that, but never to the point where I had to call the police on them.
Evans isn't sure when she'll be getting out of the hospital. Eventually, she'll be getting a prosthetic hand and will have to learn how to navigate life with it.
I just take it one day at a time. That's all I can do is take it one day at a time, and I still have nightmares. I still have flashbacks. I just take it one day at a time. That's all I can do.
A GoFundMe has been set up to help Evans. If you would like to donate, we'll be putting a link on our website, fox2detroit.com. Camila Mary, Fox 2 News.
So this woman got to get a robot hand now because her boyfriend, again, he was dealing with this same thing. If I can't have you, nobody can. We've talked about that and what the root causes of that logic, where that comes from. This is how but again, I want to stress to you, this is how their news starts. Okay. Here's another
Developing
story.
tonight, Detroit police are trying to solve a deadly shooting from the east side of the city. Police say a transgender woman was found shot inside a home on Troster Street after 11 this morning. No suspects are in custody just yet. The motive behind this shooting is under investigation.
It was a house party in the 8500 block of Wisconsin. There was a verbal argument which led to gunfire and 2 people being shot.
And that chain of events, community activists say, is never acceptable and could have been amicably settled. A house party should be a fun event, but instead a fight broke out, and by the end, 2 men were wounded. One was shot in the ankle and the other shot in the shoulder. They both ended up in the hospital. It happened at a home on Wisconsin Street on the west side of Detroit. Police haven't arrested anyone yet, but they're asking for help. If you know anything, call Detroit Police or Crime Stoppers.
There was a brief struggle between the suspect and the employee here. The weapon was discharged, striking the employee.
And we have to tell you about more gun violence tonight from the west side of Detroit. A gas station employee was shot during an attempted robbery this morning. It happened at a Marathon gas station on Ewald and Davison. The employee was taken to the hospital, last listed in temporary serious.
I'm just going to pause. Let me just fast forward a little bit because, I mean, you imagine, that I heard your teen truth. Anyway, but I'll just play this one. Even that guy, Davis, even him, he got caught up. This is just the weekend.
Social media comedian Davis is behind bars for no laughing matter here. He is accused of domestic violence. The Detroit native, whose real name is Carlos Davis, was arrested by Utica police on Friday. Investigators haven't released any additional information on the victims. We don't know much about the circumstances. Davis is being held at the Macomb County Jail on a $5,000 cash surety bond.
I mean, it just, imagine your news is just starting off like that. But this is the world we live in. This happens all the time. And like Dolomite, what he said was true. He said, all you got to do is do a search and you'll see birthday after birthday after birthday, there's shootings. So in this construct that we call the black community, the new party favor is a gun. Bring a gun. Oh, there's a 2-year-old, my 2-year-old, we're going to have a birthday party for my 2-year-old. Honey, I need you to bring some chips. I need you to bring the chips and the dip. Make sure you bring some of your barbecue chicken. Make sure you bring this, that, and make sure everybody bring your guns because we don't want nothing breaking out. But, just in case, we want to make sure everybody bring their guns. That's the new party favor right now. It's true. And because, like he said, all you got to do is do a search. You'll see this happen all the time. Why people bringing guns? Is that community? Like I said in the post earlier, you can't spell community without the word unity. And so if this is a normal thing that goes on in what we call the community, what you're saying is that there is a significant number of people within this community who are unified to hate and to kill you. Think about it. There are people within what you call community that are unified to hate you to the point where they will want to kill you. And let me go even further in saying this. I have to make, even with me, it's like this weekend I was all online. I was like, man, is there some kind of, when is there something black going on this weekend? Anything, I just, let me just check out and see, because, they'll have little things happening around here in Phoenix area every now and then. So I was like, man, is there something going on? I found out about a couple of concerts that are coming up. I'm going to check those out. But other than that, I was like, yeah, let me just see. Let me just tell you something. I have to make some life changes. If I have to really think once, twice, 3 times, a maybe. If it's a lot of black people and there's alcohol anywhere in the midst, I ain't going. I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm not. I have to make, because some people will hear that and be like, oh, no, listen, now you hate yourself. See, you're a self-hater. You're a coon and all this other stuff. No, I just want to keep alive. I want to keep hope alive. How about that? I want to stay alive. Okay, I want to just have a good night. I want to get a piece of cake, maybe not. Maybe I want a salad. Maybe I want something to drink. Whatever. I just want to have a nice evening. I don't want to be like Okay, y'all, we're going to say the Lord's Prayer because I don't know, we're going to come back tonight. Why I got to think that way and I'm around people that I think are supposed to be my people? You know what I'm saying? So what we're getting into now, all that being said, what is behind this? Is there a science behind this? Why is it that when it comes to certain, when we hear about these, I want to call them internal conflicts, where you see black folk being black folk, there's one way we react to that. But then if there's white people involved, then all of a sudden, 5 years later, we're still talking about, what's his name? George Floyd. We still talking about George Floyd. 5 years later, they still talking about George Floyd. They ain't talking about all the businesses that got burnt down. They ain't talking about that. They ain't talking about all the businesses that got burnt down in his name. But we talking about George Floyd. Make that make sense. So what is it? So let's get into it, okay? So what I did today, I wanted, because I'm like really wanting to know, because I'm like, I'm tired of this. This is making me mad. Like when I saw that story yesterday, I was just like, I said, I can't take it. I can't take it. So anyway, so let me take you through what we were going through. What I did on ChatGPT, and then we're going to start getting in. So the other end of it, we're gonna have some solutions and practical solutions, all that stuff. We're gonna get that. We ain't gonna just show you the bad stuff like we try to do, which we do here. But we're gonna also say, okay, what is it? Things that we can do to make some changes, right? But first, we got to understand some things. So anyway, for those of you who took the ChatGPT course, remember you got to start off by telling ChatGPT what you want it to operate as, okay? And so I said, you are a psychotherapist, a psychoanalyst, and a psychologist. So I'm telling it what I want it to operate as, all right? So here we go. I said, as a black man, this is something that I've noticed for a very long time, and I need your help and insight into trying to understand it. What I've noticed is that when it comes to particularly the Black American community, when it comes to news that involves a white cop or a white individual who does some harm to a black individual, now you see the periods and all that all over the place. Please just mind that, because this was all like transcribed. I was saying it, and so it posted it, however, so please overlook that. Anyway, I said when it comes to a black individual, there seems to be way more engagement than stories that involve black individuals who do harm to other black individuals. What I want you to do is to use your background and resources to try to explain this phenomenon in a scientific, mental, and psychological terms. While I do want you to pull from all different angles of this phenomenon, I'm reading it, however, what I do not want is for you to construct an analysis that centers on just mere racism. There are multiple reasons why this happens, which we're going to get into. Why this happens, I want you to explore them. What it seems like is that there is almost like there is some type of brain triggers that will activate certain parts of the brain to automatically jump to conclusions. And those triggers usually involve a perceived offense coming from white people. However, trends that show way more damage that's coming from within the black community, oftentimes those get played down or ignored. I just want a very open and honest analysis from you that is not motivated in giving me answers that you may think I want to hear. This phenomenon can be seen in other examples to certain degrees in other groups. I just want to gain a greater understanding about it. Now, I'm sure I read all of that because, like I said, I was talking in my phone and read it, so like I said, it did it as it heard it. I wanted you to see that because this is how when you do a prompt, this is kind of how you got to do it. You know what I mean? And I made it very clear. Listen, don't give me what I want to hear. I want to know from those angles, from those perspectives. I want you to try to explain this phenomenon, right? So anyway, so let's read what it gave me. Now, there's going to be some skipping I'm going to do. I'm just going to get on the key parts. but I think you're going to find this quite interesting here. Okay. Let's go. Number one, neurocognitive threat detectors. And I'm going to read it high level first, the high level stuff first, and then we're going to get into the nitty gritty. We're going to get into where, by the end of this, you're going to really understand what's being said here. Okay. This ain't me trying to impress you. I'm just going to start from the top and then we'll go down. Out-group danger is neurologically salient. fMRI studies show stronger activation of the orbital frontal cortex and other moral salience networks when an out-group perpetrator harms an in-group member than when both parties are in group. That heightened activity tracks with sharper moral sensitivity and faster judgments of blame. Let me explain that for you. Okay. So what they're saying is that they've done this fMRI is basically a way of looking at the brain, and you can see activities going like in real time. Right. And so what they're saying is that our minds, regardless if we're dealing with humans or even animals, which I'm going to give some examples of animals as well, our minds instinctively, anybody that we assume or associate with being part of our quote unquote group, we will naturally defend that group. So in the case of black folks, for example, and you could same thing with white people, same thing with Asian people, it doesn't matter. We're just talking about black folks. When you see there's a difference when you see a black person being mistreated. There's a difference in your reaction. And when I say mistreated, I'm saying mistreated by someone that's not black. There's a difference in your reaction between a black person and a black person being mistreated by a white person versus a black person mistreating another black person. There's a difference, right? And so everybody has this baked in our minds because in our brains, we have by default associated all black people being all a part of our group, right? And so, but like I said, again, this is not exclusive to black people. White people think the same way. Asian people think the same way. And then when you get to animals think the same way as well. So this is not exclusive to black people. Okay. It's just that triggered. It's that normal way that we just naturally, first things first, we just associate that, hey, that's our group. Don't you dare attack our group. Right. That's what goes on up here. It's just a natural thing. All right, let's get back. All right, so evolutionary coalitional, I hope I'm saying that, logic. From a survivor standpoint, a threat coming from outside one's coalition historically signaled a risk of large-scale domination or resource loss, whereas in-group skirmishes, while tragic, rarely toppled the group's collective standing. The modern brain still uses this heuristic. So what that's saying is, again, think in terms of animals. All right, we're not animals. I'm not saying we're animals, okay? But just think in terms of just a very base state. When you see something or somebody coming your way in a threatening manner, you automatically assume that, whoa, they're trying to wipe us out. So your mind is automatically going to shift to the highest point of defense. Your brain is just automatically going to shift to that. And so again, this is normal behavior. This is all normal. All right. Social identity and moral outrage pathways. Group-based injustice anger. Social anxiety theory predicts that harm from a higher status or rival group threatens the in-group's moral status, triggering outrage cascades aimed at restoring dignity. Experiments confirm that people feel more anger and more motivated to share or protest when an out-group aggressor is involved. All right. And then the other point is moral typecasting and power asymmetry. Police occupy an authority role. When they kill, it violates a foundational norm: protect, don't harm. That's moral betrayal That moral betrayal intensifies outrage beyond the physical violence itself. All right, let's move on to the next point: collective and vicarious racial trauma. And I'm just going to skip over that, but what they're referring to is if you are an individual that basically historically you have a track record of experiencing racial trauma and all that, that also can play a role in your reaction to why your soul is like, you see a story like that, you just automatically jump and just get in defense mode, right? And come to drastic conclusions. So I'm just skipping over that. I told you I'm just going to be skipping over some things. Cognitive bias mechanics, availability and distinctiveness. Police killings of black civilians are statistically rarer than community homicides. So each event is novel and thus better remembered. The mind overestimates the frequency of vivid, emotionally charged events. All right. So, for example, George Floyd, Rodney King. When you see these things, what it does, your brain, it just amplifies it because you saw somebody that looks like you that's being mistreated. And so because you in your brain have associated this is one of my people, your brain will amplify it and say, hey, we're all being attacked. This is impacting all of us, right? And so it just magnifies it, even though statistically that is not the case. That just happened in those cases, right? So that's what that's saying there. Let's see. Chronic exposure to intra-community violence can dull emotional response, a protective numbness. Outgroup harm slices through that numbness because it carries additional symbolic weight. So when you're exposed constantly over and over again to this violence, birthday party shootings and all this other stuff, you get numb to it. Like 11 people, think about it for a second. 11 people just in that one shooting, black folks, 11 black folks were rushed to the hospital. Think about it for a second. Now that's just it. That's not even in Myrtle Beach, because I think Myrtle Beach, they had people going to the hospital as well for the shootings that was taking place there. So you got all of these people that are black folks this Sunday that were rushed to the hospital. You would have thought that every black platform on YouTube, on TikTok, on Twitter, anybody, black folks would have become the ultimate Voltron, because you had at least, if you do the numbers, at least 20 black folks, let's say in one night, being rushed to the hospital. You would have thought people would have lost their minds over that. Oh my God, it's happening. But that's not what happened, did it? In fact, I took a quick scan. Ain't nobody really talking about. I mean, there's some people talking about it. I don't see the usual platforms. They're not talking about it. It's run of the mill. But if it came out, this is a white sniper that had a "Make America Great Again" hat on, and he was military and all that. Oh my goodness, you know how that would work. It would just be panic all over the place. People would have Bible scriptures. They would be talking about this is prophecy and this is why we need to go to Africa because we're not in our homeland. And, it would be all that stuff. All the drama would come out. But seeing your own kill your own, it's just running the mill. Oh dear. Okay, well, what's coming on tonight at 8? Child, these niggas, you know how they do. They gonna just be them. But let it be the same. You talking about, but this time the person who was delivering the bullet was someone that was white. All of a sudden that becomes a big thing, right? Well, where does that come from? Again, it's a normal part of how the brain operates, right? You could say hypocrisy. Yep, it's hypocrisy in that, but there's something more going on there. And that's what we're going to talk about. Let's get back to this here. All right, here we go. Media algorithm. Okay, number 5. This is very good. Media algorithm echo chambers. profit meets platform design. Newsrooms and social media algorithms prioritize stories that maximize clicks, outrage over racial injustice drives engagement. So those incidents receive disproportionate amplification. We know this, right? Feedback loop. Each viral case conditions audiences to expect the next one, reinforcing selective vigilance while quieter everyday shootings remain local news. All right. Let's see. All right, so I'm gonna skip down here, putting it all together. I'm gonna skip down here, okay? Okay, so let's go to number 9 here. Implications for mental health and community discourse, emotional bandwidth. Repeated exposure to high-profile police shootings can exhaust psychological resources, leaving fewer reserves to process local trauma. Balanced narrative hygiene, community leaders, and mental health professionals. Okay, it's given some basic solutions there, but we're going to get into it a little bit more. Okay, could you explain, this is me asking the next question, could you explain this section even further, this time in simpler terms? Okay, I actually covered that already. But you know what? I'll read it. It was the section that talked about outgroup danger is neurologically salient. fMRI studies show stronger activation of the orbital frontal cortex, which is right in front of your forehead. I don't know, watch or whatever. Hey, you chill and just listen, because you firing off a lot of text here. Just if you could chill, and then we'll have a time afterwards. If you got any questions afterwards, I'm here for it. But just kind of chill a little bit, okay? All right. Show that stronger activation of the orbital frontal cortex, like I said, it's right under just the front of your forehead, and other moral salient networks when an out-group perpetrator harms an in-group member than when both parties are in-group. That heightened activity tracks with sharper moral sensitivity and faster judgments of blame. Okay, so here's a simpler way of putting that. Okay, I explained it earlier, but I want to make sure we're getting this. Your us versus them wiring. Every human brain keeps a mental list of people like me, the in-group, and people not like me, the out-group. So your brain, it keeps this list of people that you automatically associate that's in your group. So for most people in this society, they associate that with skin color. Again, black folks do it, white people do it, Asian folks do it, what have you. They associate with skin color. They may associate it with language or whatever, but your brain, it keeps track of all of that, right? This sorting system runs automatically. It can be based on race, family, team loyalty, anything that feels like a shared identity. Number 2, the brain's alarm is louder for outside threats. When someone from your outgroup hurts one of our people, brain scanners, your fMRI, shows a spike of activity in areas that flag danger and judge right versus wrong. Think of it as your internal siren. It blares at full volume for an outsider's attack, but only at half volume when the same harm comes from someone inside the group. Because I think that what that is, when you especially when you think of animals, they, and again, I'm not saying humans are animals, we're one and the same. I'm not saying that, but I'm just giving basic examples here. I think it's almost like, oh, they're just going to hash it out. They're just being themselves. They're going to hash it out. They're not, whatever they're doing, it's not really damaging the overall direction of the entire group. That's just 2 brothers or 2 sisters. They're just hashing it out, and that's it. That's normal how we think as human beings. That's normal. But in this conversation, what we're talking about is there are too many innocent people that are dying because of this. So no, this ain't normal. And we're going to get into that. Orbital frontal cortex, your fairness referee. What is that? One of the regions that lights up your orbital frontal cortex, a patch right behind your forehead. Like I said, its job is to weigh, is it fair or who's to blame? Higher activation here means you feel the unfairness more sharply and pin the blame more quickly. Now, what causes that? What causes that? Now that's tied to your history, your personal history, your personal experience. If you have been in an abusive situation, if you yourself have been in a situation where, yeah, you did encounter some racism that really brought some real trauma, that kind of stuff there, your brain is going to go to what's familiar because now that has been imprinted in your brain. So your brain is going to switch to that immediately and is going to reference that and say, see, this is the reason. It's going to automatically jump to that. All right. And that's based on a combination of personal experience, but also what you douse yourself with on a regular basis. So if your daily diet is listening to people who always will pivot towards, yep, it's the white people. Yep, it's them. It's the tethers. Yes, it's this people. If you are listening to that on a regular basis, what you're doing is you're imprinting your mind and you're training your brain to automatically to make decisions or to draw conclusions based off of that oversimplification. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this is why it's important to take very good care of who you listen to on a regular basis, because as you're learning, your brain is elastic. It's basically like plastic almost. And so what's happening is as you listen to these certain individuals on a regular basis, it's getting formed based on those opinions. You understand what I'm saying? Even if you have never lived those opinions yourself, even if you have never experienced that stuff yourself, because you listen to that on a regular basis. For example, in a religious space, particularly in Hebrews, they're always talking about America's going to burn. America's going to burn. There's judgment. There's judgment. There's judgment. Judgment. Shaka Khan. Shaka Khan. Judgment. I mean, over and over again. If that's all you hearing over and over again, doom and gloom, doom and gloom, doom and gloom, doom and gloom, over and over again, pretty soon, everything you hear is going to be through that filter. Because why? You allow these people to help create and form your brain in such a way where that's how you judge things quickly. You understand? So that's what that means. Result, quicker, stronger, more reactions. Because the alarm is louder, you're faster to feel outrage, share a story, or demand justice when the perpetrator is an outsider. The same act done by an insider still registers as wrong, but the emotional volume knob is turned down so it grabs less attention. In short, our brains are built to treat outside attacks as bigger, more urgent threats, then they flip on the moral outrage lights accordingly. All right. So let's go. And I said, thank you for the explanation. I said, so I definitely get how the natural brain function to treat external threats with a sense of higher urgency. I get that. For example, we can see this with interactions between animals versus humans to a lesser degree, but still significant. As you mentioned, humans of different races, skin color will have similar reactions. But what is it that must happen in the brain when it is determined that the biggest threat is in fact from the internal group and not the perceived external group? Here we go here. How your brain updates when the danger comes from inside the group in everyday words. Below is a zoom in. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all this, but I'll just go through part of it. Okay, so here we go. How your brain updates when danger comes from inside the group. So now we're dealing with if something so we already established the fact that your brain is by default wired to, we want to say, quote unquote, overreact. I'm just going to put you in ban because, again, I we just say simple. I said, just wait till after we have, we can have a Q&A afterwards. But if you don't want to, I'm speaking to this individual here, if you don't want to follow basic instructions, this is not the platform for you. Okay. So, I just have to do that. Okay. And maybe another day you can, get it together there. All right. So anyway, let's move on. How your brain updates when danger comes from inside the group. As I said, by default, your brain is wired to somewhat overreact when it's outside the group. Okay. So here's what happens. This is the first stage. fast tag and predict. Your brain's autopilot still puts a green safe tag on fellow group members and yellow dash red caution tag on outsiders. Okay, so in other words, normal, when you see someone that's black, what's happening? Your brain will automatically give them a pass. They're at the cookout because they're black, right? Because most people will just automatically associate you're black. That means we're safe. Same thing with white people. We're white. Okay, we must be safe. You're Asian. Okay, that must mean we're safe. This is normal brain activity. Okay. The next thing is reality check hits. Okay. Before I get to there, they on this side of the column, it says amygdala and visual areas run this split second tagging. So these are the two parts of your brain that they're really quick. They're running these taggings. When they see these things or when they encounter something, it's quickly tagging. It's saying, here, you're green. No, you're red. No, you're red. You're yellow. Those parts of your brain, your amygdala and visual areas, is quickly doing that. Number 2, reality check hits. Repeated news, stats, or lived experiences show that green tagged people are doing the damage. This creates an error signal. So in your brain, all of a sudden it's like ding, 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 ding. Whoa. Hold on. My prediction was wrong. That's what your brain is saying. So what's happening inside your brain? Well, let's take a look. The anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC, is the brain's conflict detector and lights up whenever expectation does not equal reality. So you have a part of your brain when it's like, wait a minute, I thought these were supposed to be my people. Why are they shooting at me? Why are they shooting other black folks? So your brain is like, whoa, wait a minute. Your anterior cingulate cortex, your ACC, is like, whoa, wait a minute. This ain't right. All right, let's move on to number 3. Emotional clash, betrayal, not just fear. Because harm comes from someone you expected to trust, the feeling shifts from pure fear to betrayal, a mix of hurt, anger, and sadness. And I know many of you have experienced that. I know for me, when I see those, anytime I'm showing those clips and all of that, it's I can't even express really what my emotions are. They're all over the place. And and ultimately you feel tired because it's like, come on, y'all. You know what I mean? But there's also there's a feeling of betrayal that I feel, hurt, there's anger, there's rage I feel, and there's also sadness. So this is normal. Your insula, it handles gut level something's wrong feeling, plus your orbital frontal cortex, the fairness referee. Those are being activated. Okay. Hope you guys are still with me. I told you we're going to go deep with this. Okay. But we're going to give we're going through step by step what goes on in the brain on this. All right. Cognitive resorting. Your thinking brain now has to refile who counts as us. It may, number 1, shrink the circle. Those bad actors aren't real members. Or number 2, accept that the in-group can be dangerous. What's the key part here? It says this takes slow, effortful thought. This is very important here. When you get to the place, when you begin to acknowledge that it's really dangerous out here to be in groups, large groups of other black folks, especially if there's alcohol involved, because usually that's the trigger. Or if you're going to a certain part of town where there's a high amount of black folks, it's dangerous. That takes a lot of effort in your brain. And I'm speaking to myself as well, because it's not a conclusion that can happen overnight. It takes time. It's both internal and it's also external. Internal because, again, you're going against what should be normal, right? Which should not. You're going against something that should be normal. When you're around people that look like you're fully protected, everything's cool. But in this case, no, that's not the case. So your brain, you got to allow your brain to literally rewire. Some of you are having issues. You may have issues with your family. Your family should be your safest place, right? But in reality, for some of you, your family is the source of your pain. They're the source of your headaches. So now you have to allow yourself, but so in the process of you coming to that conclusion and realizing, okay, yep, this is true. It is doing me harm. In the process, there's still this period of you going back and forth. And sometimes you feel like, well, I still got to be there for them. I still got to show up for them. I still got to do this. They still family at the end of the day. Then there's the other part of your head that's saying, man, I can't be around these folks. So there's going to be a period of time where your brain is trying to figure that out. And what I'm telling you is allow your brain to do that. Allow it to do that. Okay? Just allow your brain to do that. It's going to take some time. It doesn't happen overnight. All right? So over on the right hand side, it explains again, this is your dorsal lateral PFC. It weighs new evidence and can now override the old autopilot tags. So now another part of your brain is now got to weigh this new evidence and say, you know what? I'm going to have to make some changes. This is all happening in your brain. This is fascinating. Behavior update or numbness. If the news story sticks, you'll redirect worry, resources, or activism towards internal problems. If the clash is too painful, the brain may numb out, emotional shutdown, or push the topic away. This is what happens with a lot of people. They just numb out and say, I just don't want to hear it. And, changes in the amygdala, PFC wiring after heavy violence exposure can blunt responses. And this is where you'll find a lot of people, they are in that place where they just, they just numb out. I come across that a whole lot. Okay, so this right here, I'm not going to go through every detail on this chart here, but this is where I asked about, are there examples within nature? Let me just read two of them for you, okay? Honeybees, for example, it's a single egg laying queen and thousands of workers. That's normally how it's supposed to be set up. But what counts as an internal threat for honeybees? Worker bees occasionally sneak in their own eggs, undermining the queen's genetics. So in other words, you got a worker like, shoot, well, I'm going to have my kids. We doing all this work and she's the only one up in here to get to have their kids. No. I'm going to have my kids. So what is the response of the group? Other workers smell the rogue eggs and eat them within minutes, a behavior called worker policing. Parallels to the human brain sequence, protection error goes to policing. A chemical mismatch triggers a hardwired destroy routine that keeps the hive stable. So your brain is actively going through these steps too when it's forced to make a change. And then we'll look at ant colonies, tens of thousands of siblings. A nest mate infected with a deadly fungus can wipe out the colony. And what happens? Once the group recognizes that this is a threat, healthy ants swarm the sick individual, groom off spores, or drag the ant outside to die, a form of social immune system. In a prediction error, and it goes to quarantine, the colony flips from treating the ant as us to treating it like a biohazard waste. And this is how your brain operates. It has to switch up like that. And so when you see niggas out there who are prone to always bring drama and mess, what you have to allow your mind to see them as now is they're no longer part of your group. Now they are part of biohazard waste. They cannot be anywhere near you. They can't be near you. You got to keep them far away from you. That also includes family. You got to keep them far away from you. All right. Now let's move on here. And I think this is the last part of it here. Okay. I said, now I know that ultimately the overall brain function needs to be healthy in order to make these adjustments. I also know that there are many other factors that can contribute to a person's ability to make such adjustments, right? So there's multiple reasons beyond what I'm just saying why people do these kind of things. But for now, I want to focus on 3 approaches on how to heal this: herbal remedies, diet, and exercises. And I said in other conversations, like we've talked about this on this platform before, we discussed the importance of reading for brain stimulation when it comes to decision making, when it comes to other parts of the brain that you mentioned in today's conversation so far. What are some of the herbal, dietary, and exercise recommendations you would give? All right. So here we go really quick here. And if you would like, I can make this available for you. I can also put this on the community page if you like, but I'm just going to go through this extremely quickly. Number 1, calming the danger detector, amygdala, and insula. All right. The approach, why it helps, and simple ways to use it. All right. So the adaptogenic herbs, what are those? There's ashwagandha, holy basil, or rhodiola, rosea. I hope I'm saying that, tincture. Adaptogens modulate cortisol and support GABA serotonin balance, key for keeping the amygdala from overfiring. All right. And then here's a daily tonic. And I can explain that in more detail, maybe in other videos. Okay. So I know it's, like I said, this is like top level explanation is given here. Magnesium rich foods, pumpkin seeds, leafy greens, black beans, sea moss gel, whatever. Magnesium. That needs to be a daily part of your intake, of what you take in on a daily basis. If you're not getting it through food, like things like watermelon, there's many other things out there as well, like leafy greens, beans, that's kind of thing. Sea moss, magnesium, especially sea moss is rich in magnesium. You want to make sure that's a daily part of your diet, okay? Because that magnesium, or if you can't get it through there, then get some capsules, right? That has magnesium in it. Breathing exercises. One day we'll talk about breathing exercises and the impact it has on your brain as well. Number 2, sharpening conflict error signals, their anterior cingulate cortex. You got green tea, omega-3s, and other things there. Doing a 20-minute brisk walk. Those are things that help that part of your brain. Strengthening executive control and ethical weighing. That's your orbitofrontal cortex. There's some ones that they mentioned here, some different herbs, why it helps improve cerebral blood flow and support. It gives all of this here. All right. Number 4, updating reward and motivation loops. It gives you that as well. Saffron and cocoa. Why does it help? It gives you the breakdown on why these things help. And pumpkin seeds, we're back at that again. And then all this other stuff. What I did basically is I wanted to know these key parts of the brain where our brain, we will tend to, where we overreact, where we've been just basically blanketly just say, oh, we're just being hypocritical here. We just firing off at white people, but when it happens in our home base, we don't really take full responsibility of it. And that's wrong. It is wrong, but it also is in alignment with how we're actually designed, but it doesn't mean that it's right. Because where we get stuck is we just accept that as that's just the normal, right? It's not normal to see people like in this boat. It was supposed to be a birthday party and people shooting each other. That's not normal. That kind of behavior has to be treated as a biohazard, and it needs to be separated. It needs to be totally separated from you. All right. And so here, and I'll just give you this right here. So this even gives you a 1-day brain circuit sampler. It goes from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Different foods you can take, exercises. It gives you all of that. All right. So there's a lot more on that I can give, but like I told you, it's quite in depth, a lot of stuff there that we just went over there. And so I do hope you take the time and go over it again. So again, just to recap, this tendency that we see oftentimes, when we're talking about Black folks now, as I said earlier, it's not just Black people. You got other groups that do the same thing as well. It's perfectly natural when we're dealing with a situation where if we see somebody from who we deem as from an external group attacking us, we overreact, even though right down the street or even in our own backyard or even in our own house, we may have far worse things going on, and we just kind of treat it as, well, that's okay. But that is not okay. That is wrong, right? It is wrong. Even though our brain normally operates like that, and that, where we are to naturally be more ferocious, if you will, when it comes to what we perceive as an external source coming in to mess up the standard that we have internally, right? We should be more aggressive towards that. That's how normally it should be. But the problem is that internally there are what we're dealing with, what we call the Black community, the standards are all over the place. You understand what I'm saying? So what needs to happen first is there has to be a recalibration, right? There has to be a recalibration that takes place where now we're not just looking at skin color. Now we're looking at some other set of values or characteristics that we as individuals say, okay, this person is part of my group. That person is part of my group. Where no longer is just resting on color, but it's resting on a different set of characteristics. And what I'm saying is that in of itself, it is going to take time, but it is a path that you're going to have, that we all have to take. Do you understand what I'm saying? But all the more reason why we have to separate ourselves from the foolishness. Do you understand? And because again, shooting one another and all that, that's a cancerous activity where other people, innocent people can die, including you. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to be associated with anybody that could kill me, take me out, or to tear me down in any way, shape, or form. I don't want to be associated with people like that. Now, the deeper issues, I just mentioned exercise, diet, and herbs, right? I just mentioned those things. But there are more deeper issues like, how you were raised and, what's going on in your home and all of that stuff. So when it comes to those three issues that we talked about, when it comes to at least herbal and even diet, Sombertree, we can help you with that. We're equipped to help you with those things, right? So I would really suggest, and we're going to revamp a lot of things that we have on the site, to try to package things where we're going to say, okay, this is for men. This is a good herbal mix for men. This is, who are dealing with this, that, or whatever. This is a good herbal mix for women who are dealing with X, Y, Z. You understand? So we're going to start offering things like that to make it a lot easier for people, so we can start using nature as a way to address some of these things. Because we can have 3, 4 hour, 10-hour discussions and table talks and all this on the government needs to do this, that, or whatever. But a lot of times it starts with that. It starts with basic things like that. But then there's also the more deeper things that we're not equipped with, and that is getting professional counseling. That's something that we promote all the time and encourage people. Listen, you need to do that. If you find yourself in a stitch, that this is something that's been going on for a long time and you just can't figure these problems out, you need to get some professional counseling. And that's something that we promote all the time on this platform. I know I said earlier on the post, I said Nicole was going to be with us this evening. However, we had something come up that just, man, we still trying to, recalibrate ourselves in the area of business and all of that. So she will be with us. She really wanted to be here, but she, it's just been one of those days. I'm literally living right now what I'm talking about. So anyway, so that's what we do on this platform here. It's not going to be popular, in talking about this. In fact, it's very dry, to talk about such things, in this way, because it would be far easier and a lot more popular if I got up here and start talking about, what we need to do. I'm just sick and tired of all this. See, I can go that way, but that's not constructive. We're not moving forward with that. You're just hearing me vent. I would much rather provide you with some information that can help you in this as you are on your own journey and as you are finding yourself having to do these same readjustments as well, and show you just how complex it really is, but yet it's worth the effort to find out how this operates and to learn how to work with it and not work against it. You understand what I'm saying? Give yourself certain allowances too in the process of you readjusting, because we're all going through readjustments right now, especially during this time. And someone mentioned, because another thing, that's I believe that's a factor in this is the what that took place a few years ago, which I can't mention, but you know what I'm talking about. There's an article that Nicole and I was going to talk about tonight, the impact that doctors are finding now that's happening in places like your prefrontal cortex and all of that. There's a direct relationship in your amygdala. They're finding now people who did the they're finding that people, when they do their autopsies, these areas are fried because of the what. And you're starting to, and when you look at how people are reacting and just over the dumbest stuff and just losing their minds. There was a story, Team Truth, I don't know if you saw it. This was it wasn't Mesa. It was around Mesa somewhere. Black woman, 72 years old. She got so angry that her son, who was like 38 years old, was playing video games so loud. She went, got a gun, and shot him in the stomach like 3 times. 72-year-old black woman. She got a gun and went, shot him 3 times. Fortunately, he actually survived it. But these are stories that are happening literally every day. She took the gun and threw it in the canal in Tempe, I think it was. And she said, I just flipped out. There are stories. We are living in a world right now where that is becoming more and more common. Okay? And there are different factors that are contributing to that. It would be easy for me to sit up here and say it's a government conspiracy. It's the chemtrails, because a lot of people would just go right to that. I'm not saying those things aren't factors, but what we want to focus on first are the things that we can control. And that is who we surround ourselves with, the things we eat, the things we put in ourselves. Those are things that will help, that will give us a leg up in this, because I'm telling you, we are in a period of time right now where you're going to see more and more people lose it. That's number one. And you're going to also see more and more of your loved ones going bye-bye. We just had a phone call today of someone. We worked with this individual for years, and we just got a text, they're gone. I mean, my wife was just talking to this individual just the other day. They were trading texts and all that. Then we get a text, they're gone. And so now there's things that we have to recalibrate and do all this other stuff because they're gone now. There's other people. There are many stories I can share with you right now where people are just gone. And again, we can get into the deeper issues on, the powers that shouldn't be there behind this. But see, it's a lot. What I'm encouraging you, don't just fixate yourself on that. There are a lot of other factors that we need to focus on, like what we talked about this evening. Okay. So that's what this whole broadcast was about. So, maybe tomorrow I'll post this on our community page, and maybe I'll put it as a PDF and maybe you can follow it along or not or whatever. But tonight I wanted to go over that, because I don't want to just talk about these stories and like, oh, here's some more niggas. I could do that, or we can look at it constructively and know how we can do better, right? So that's what we try to do this evening on this broadcast. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys enjoy the rest of your day or evening whenever you watch this, and take care. Leave your feedback on the comments below, and that's it. I would have had a Q&A time. If you have any questions, you can post them now. I had to block that individual because, again, follow instructions. You know what I mean? I also am just finished another study I did on black businesses and what black businesses have to do in this age of high illiteracy and mental illness. There are certain things, there's certain ways now as business owners, there's new ways that we have to start thinking. I got a whole thing I just completed on that. I'll share that with you one day. Because the way we handle business now, I'll just give you just for example, there's some customers you have to explain things over and 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 over again. And you're finding, why is this? And just recently we had a customer, this is not Samba Tree, this is another business we have or whatever. She's admitted that, hey, she's dealing with, I think it wasn't amnesia. It was another condition where she's losing it. She admitted to that. So one day she's like, okay, I'm gonna place this order. The next day is, oh, I'm gonna cancel it. And it's like, and she says, but because I didn't know who placed the order. Is that kind of stuff. When I'm telling you, this is will become more and more of an issue. It is. And as entrepreneurs, as business owners, you're going to need to know how to handle those situations, because this thing is getting worse. I did like a 10-year projection on this to see it's scary. So we'll talk about that in another video. Okay. But for now, thank you so much for tuning in. You guys take care, and we will be talking again soon. Take care now.